My name is Stephanie Mitchell, I'm 34, and until last Tuesday, I thought I had the perfect marriage. 8 years with Jason, our dream house in the suburbs that we'd saved for years to buy, a life we'd built together brick by brick. Then I came home early from work to find my sister-in-law Amber packing up my clothes, my books, my memories. Jason's family is moving in, she said without looking up. You need to find somewhere else to stay. Before I could process her words, my phone rang. If you're watching this, please hit subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this story ends. Jason and I met during our junior year of college. I was studying marketing while he was pursuing architecture, and we literally bumped into each other at the campus library. It was one of those movie-worthy moments, books scattered everywhere, awkward apologies, and then a coffee date that turned into dinner. By graduation, we were inseparable, and we married in a small ceremony surrounded by friends and family. We were young, ambitious, and so in love. The early years of our marriage were typical for millennials. We rented a tiny apartment, worked entry-level jobs, and dreamed of something more. Jason joined a respected architecture firm while I climbed the corporate ladder in marketing. Every promotion, every raise brought us closer to our goal, a home of our own. We saved relentlessly, cutting corners wherever possible, postponing vacations, and choosing budget-friendly options for everything. 2 years ago, our persistence paid off. We found a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial in a leafy suburb, with a yard perfect for the children we hoped to have someday. The closing day was one of the happiest moments of our lives, standing in our empty living room, keys in hand, planning where each piece of furniture would go. We'd made it. I was now a marketing executive at a national company, and Jason had become a senior architect working on prestigious projects throughout the city. Jason's family had always been a significant presence in our lives. His mother, Diane, maintained a polished exterior that barely concealed her controlling nature. She had opinions about everything, our careers, our home, even how we spent holidays. Jason's father, Harold, was quieter, typically deferring to his wife's decisions while occasionally offering a kind word or gentle joke to ease tensions. Then there was Amber, Jason's younger sister. 3 years younger than Jason, she'd never quite found her footing in adulthood. She bounced between jobs, apartments, and relationships, always landing back at her parents' home when things fell apart. While Jason made excuses for her free spirit, I saw the envy in her eyes whenever she visited our home or heard about our accomplishments. She'd make subtle digs about how convenient it must be to have everything handed to you, completely dismissing the years of hard work we'd invested. Jason's brother Tyler was the most reasonable of the bunch. He had a steady job as a high school teacher, a long-term girlfriend named Grace, and a genuine kindness that made him easy to be around. However, he avoided conflict at all costs, especially with his mother and Amber, often leaving Jason to navigate family tensions alone. Last month, we hosted a family dinner at our home. I'd noticed some strange undercurrents, whispered conversations that stopped when I entered the room, exchanged glances between Diane and Amber, and an unusual interest in our home's layout. Diane asked pointed questions about our mortgage, our job stability, and whether we had plans to move in the next few years. At the time, I attributed it to her usual nosiness, but looking back, the warning signs were there. Jason had been acting differently too. He started working late more frequently, checking his phone constantly, and stepping outside to take calls. When I asked who was calling, he'd brush it off as just work or just mom with another crisis. Twice I found him huddled over financial documents in his home office, quickly putting them away when I appeared. "Is everything okay?" I asked one night as we prepared for bed. "You seem distracted lately." "Everything's fine," he replied, not meeting my eyes. "Just stressed about the Thompson project. The client keeps changing their mind about the design." "Are you sure that's all? You know you can talk to me about anything, right?" "I know." He kissed my forehead and turned off his bedside lamp. "Let's get some sleep." I wanted to push further, to break through whatever wall he was building, but exhaustion won out. I had an important presentation the next day and needed rest. I told myself we'd talk properly over the weekend, perhaps over a nice dinner or during a walk in the park. By then, it would be too late. Looking back at those final days of normalcy, I wish I'd pressed harder, asked more questions, demanded honest answers. But hindsight is a cruel teacher, showing us what we should have seen only after the lesson has ended. I couldn't have imagined what was brewing beneath the surface, how quickly my life was about to change, or that the family I'd married into was plotting behind my back. The night before everything fell apart, Jason and I had a quiet dinner at home. He seemed preoccupied, barely touching his food and checking his phone every few minutes. "Jason, seriously, what's going on?" I finally asked, putting down my fork. "And don't say nothing again. I know you too well." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "My parents are having some financial issues. Nothing for you to worry about." "If it's affecting you this much, then I am worried." "What kind of issues?" "They made some bad investments. Dad might need to delay retirement. Mom's upset about it." He shrugged, attempting nonchalance. "They'll figure it out." It seemed plausible enough. Many people our parents' age had faced financial setbacks. Still, something in his tone felt off, like he was sharing just enough truth to satisfy me without revealing the whole story. If only I'd realized how significant that conversation would become in just 24 hours. Tuesday started like any ordinary workday. I left early for a client meeting downtown, kissing a still sleeping Jason goodbye. The meeting went exceptionally well. The client loved our campaign proposal, which meant a significant contract renewal for the company. My boss suggested I take the afternoon off to celebrate, a rare treat in our high-pressure industry. I decided to surprise Jason by coming home early, maybe pick up some champagne and his favorite takeout on the way. As I pulled into our driveway around 2 in the afternoon, I noticed an unfamiliar car parked in front of our house, alongside Amber's recognizable blue sedan. Perhaps she was visiting Jason, though he rarely mentioned plans with his sister during workdays. Walking up to our front door, I could hear voices and movement inside. Using my key, I opened the door and called out, "Hello? Jason?" The voices immediately hushed. I followed the sound to our bedroom and froze in the doorway. Amber stood in the middle of the room, directing 2 women I vaguely recognized as her friends, Caitlin and Brenda. They were systematically emptying my closet, folding my clothes into cardboard boxes scattered around the room. My jewelry box sat open on the bed, half emptied. Family photos that had been on my nightstand were already packed away. "What the hell is going on?" I demanded, my voice barely above a whisper. Amber turned, momentarily startled before regaining her composure. She flicked her blonde hair over her shoulder and gave me that familiar condescending smile. "Stephanie. You're home early. Obviously. What are you doing in my house? Why are you packing my things?" Caitlin and Brenda exchanged uncomfortable glances, hands hovering over the sweater they'd been folding. "Maybe we should go," Caitlin murmured. "No, stay," Amber commanded. "We need to finish this today." She turned to me, her expression coolly efficient. "Jason didn't tell you? Mom and Dad are moving in. They need the space more than you do right now." My mind couldn't process her words. "What are you talking about? This is our house. Jason and I bought it together." "Well, things change." She pulled out her phone, scrolling through messages before turning the screen toward me. "Jason gave me his key and permission to get things ready. See?" The screen showed text messages supposedly from Jason's number. "Go ahead and start packing up Steph's things. I'll talk to her tonight. Parents can move in this weekend." This is insane. "I'm calling Jason right now." I pulled out my phone with shaking hands, hitting his speed dial. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. "He's in meetings all day," Amber said, returning to packing. "Important client stuff, you know how it is. He said he'd explain everything to you tonight, but we need to get this done before then." You expect me to believe my husband authorized you to pack up my belongings without even speaking to me first? My voice rose as the shock began giving way to anger. Brenda, at least, had the decency to look uncomfortable. Amber, maybe we should wait. We don't have time to wait, Amber snapped. Mom and Dad lost almost everything in that investment scam. They need somewhere to live, and this house has plenty of room. So they're moving in with us? That's still not a reason to pack up my things. Amber sighed as if explaining to a particularly slow child. Not with you. Instead of you. The family decided this house would better serve all the Mitchells, not just Jason. Mom and Dad will take the master bedroom, I'll take the guest room, and Jason will use the small bedroom as his. The fourth bedroom will be Mom's craft room. My head spun as I tried to make sense of her words. And where exactly am I supposed to go in this plan? That's between you and Jason, she replied dismissively. I'm just doing what he asked. You should probably take essential items tonight and figure out the rest later. We need this finished by evening. The humiliation and betrayal hit me like a physical blow. My home, the home I'd worked years to afford, decorated with care, filled with memories, was being taken from me by my husband's family, and apparently with his consent. I leaned against the doorframe for support, struggling to breathe. Get out, I finally managed. All of you, get out of my house right now. Don't be dramatic, Stephanie, Amber continued folding my clothes. This is happening whether you like it or not. Mom and Dad need help, and family comes first. You've always been an outsider anyway. That last comment cut deep, confirming suspicions I'd harbored for years. To them, I would never truly be family, never be a Mitchell. I said get out. I shouted, stepping forward and yanking my clothes from Caitlin's hands. This is my house. I'm not going anywhere, and neither are my things. Amber straightened, her eyes narrowing. Jason said you might be difficult about this. That's why he asked me to handle it while he's at work. Be reasonable, Stephanie. Mom and Dad lost everything. They're in their 60s. Where are they supposed to go? That's not my problem. And it's certainly not a reason to kick me out of my own home. It's Jason's home too, she countered. And he's chosen his real family. Those words struck like lightning, electrifying my panic into something harder, colder. I grabbed my phone again, trying Jason's office directly this time. His assistant confirmed he was in meetings all day and couldn't be disturbed. Please, I begged, it's an emergency. I need to speak with him right now. I'm sorry, Mrs. Mitchell, but he specifically asked not to be interrupted. Can I take a message? I hung up, trembling with a toxic mixture of fear, rage, and disbelief. Amber watched me with barely concealed satisfaction, while her friends continued packing, though more slowly now, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. You should call a friend, Amber suggested with false sympathy. Maybe stay with them until you and Jason figure things out. Technically, you have until tomorrow, but it would be easier for everyone if you just took some essentials and left now. I looked around our bedroom, our sanctuary, now being dismantled box by box. The wedding photo on my nightstand was already gone. The walk-in closet we'd been so excited about when we bought the house was half empty, my carefully organized clothes now stuffed haphazardly into cardboard boxes. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. But it was. And somehow, I needed to find out why. As Amber and her friends continued dismantling my life, I retreated to the kitchen, desperately trying Jason's cell phone again and again. Each call went straight to voicemail, increasing my panic. This had to be some terrible misunderstanding. Jason would never agree to something so extreme without talking to me first. We were partners. We made decisions together. With shaking hands, I called my best friend Ashley. They're doing what? She exclaimed after I explained the situation. That's insane, Steph. It's your house too. They can't just kick you out. Apparently, Jason authorized it, I said, my voice breaking. At least according to Amber. And you believe her? This is Amber we're talking about, the same woman who accidentally spilled red wine on your wedding dress at the reception. I don't know what to believe anymore. I can't reach Jason, and his assistant swears he's in meetings all day. I'm coming over, Ashley declared. Don't let them intimidate you. That's your house, and you're not going anywhere. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Just knowing someone was on my side gave me strength. I took a deep breath and returned to the bedroom, where Amber was now instructing Brenda to pack my books. I've decided I'm not leaving, I announced firmly. This is my home, my name is on the deed and mortgage, and I'm staying right here. If Jason has something to discuss with me, he can do it when he gets home. Amber rolled her eyes. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Stephanie. Jason's made his decision. Then he can tell me himself. Until then, stop touching my things. I moved to the boxes, beginning to unpack what they'd already stowed away. Amber grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. Don't, she warned. I yanked my arm away. Don't touch me again. This is my house, and you're here without my permission. That's trespassing. I have Jason's permission, she countered. Show me something more convincing than a text that could have been faked, and maybe I'll believe you. This clearly wasn't going according to Amber's plan. She pulled out her phone again, this time calling someone. Mom? Yeah, she came home early. She's being difficult. No, I showed her the texts. Yes, I told her that. Okay. She handed me the phone. My mother wants to speak with you. I took the phone, putting it on speaker. Diane? Stephanie, dear. My mother-in-law's voice came through, honey-sweet but with that familiar undercurrent of steel. I understand you're upset. Change is always difficult. Change? You're trying to take my home. Now, don't be dramatic. We discussed this arrangement as a family. Jason agreed it was the best solution for everyone given our current situation. We absolutely did not discuss this. I'm hearing about it for the first time today. There was a pause. Oh, dear. Jason was supposed to talk to you about this last night. He assured us he would. Well, he didn't, I snapped. And I don't believe for a second that he agreed to pack up my belongings and kick me out of our home. Stephanie, Diane's voice hardened slightly. Harold and I lost everything in that investment scheme. We have nowhere to go. Jason understood that family needs to step up in times of crisis. I'm sorry if you feel blindsided, but the arrangements have been made. What arrangements? You can't just decide to move into someone else's home. It's Jason's home too, she reminded me, echoing Amber's earlier statement. And blood is thicker than water, dear. Now, I'm on my way over to help with the packing. I suggest you calm down before I arrive. The call ended, and I stared at the phone in disbelief. The coordination of their stories suggested planning, extensive planning that somehow had occurred without my knowledge. Had Jason really agreed to this? Had he been planning to tell me last night before losing his nerve? The doorbell rang, and I rushed to answer it, hoping it was Ashley. Instead, Diane stood on my porch, immaculately dressed as always, a false smile plastered on her face. Stephanie, dear. Let's talk reasonably about this. There's nothing reasonable about what you're doing, I replied, blocking the doorway. May I come in? This isn't a conversation for the neighborhood to overhear. I reluctantly stepped aside, noticing my neighbors Carol and Dave watching curiously from their driveway across the street. Great. Now the whole neighborhood would know my business. Diane swept into the house, appraising it as if already planning where to place her furniture. I understand you're upset. Jason should have prepared you better. Prepared me? For being thrown out of my own home? How exactly does one prepare for that? Don't be so dramatic. No one is throwing you out. You and Jason are simply separating for a while. He'll explain everything when he gets home. So we're separating now? That's news to me too. Diane sighed. These things happen, dear. Marriage isn't always forever, especially when priorities shift. Jason needs to focus on his family right now. I am his family, I insisted, tears threatening. We've been married for 8 years. Yes, and it was lovely while it lasted. She patted my arm condescendingly. Why don't you pack a bag for tonight? Stay with a friend. Give yourself time to process everything. The casual cruelty of her words left me speechless. To her, my marriage was already past tense, my presence in this home already erased. The realization that this had been planned, possibly for weeks, made me physically ill. The doorbell rang again, and this time it was Ashley, her expression shifting from concern to anger when she spotted Diane. What the hell is going on here? She demanded, stepping protectively to my side. Family business, Diane replied dismissively. Stephanie is family, Ashley countered. And this is her house. As they argued, I slipped away to try Jason's office again. This time, I asked for his colleague Michael. Michael Wilson speaking. Michael, it's Stephanie Mitchell. I'm sorry to bother you at work, but I really need to reach Jason. It's an emergency. There was a pause. Stephanie? Jason's not here. He left early this morning, some kind of family emergency. Said he might be out for a few days. My blood ran cold. What time did he leave? Around 9, I think. Is everything okay? I don't know. He's not answering his phone, and his family is at our house claiming he's in meetings all day. That's strange. He definitely left the office this morning. Want me to try calling him? Please. And if you reach him, tell him to call me immediately. I hung up, my mind racing. If Jason wasn't at work, where was he? And why would his family lie about it? I returned to the living room, where Ashley was still arguing with Diane while Amber watched smugly from the hallway. The picture they presented, these people who claimed to be my family, suddenly seemed alien and threatening. Jason's not at work, I announced, interrupting their argument. He left the office at 9 this morning. So where is he? Diane and Amber exchanged a quick glance that confirmed my suspicions. They knew. What have you done with my husband? I demanded, fear replacing anger. Before either could answer, my phone rang. An unknown number. With trembling fingers, I answered. Mrs. Mitchell? This is Memorial Hospital calling. Your husband has been in an accident. The hospital waiting room was a blur of harsh fluorescent lights and antiseptic smells. After receiving the call, I'd grabbed my purse and car keys, barely registering Ashley's promise to stay at the house and keep an eye on Diane and Amber. The drive to Memorial Hospital was the longest 20 minutes of my life, my mind racing through terrible possibilities. I'm looking for Jason Mitchell, I told the woman at the reception desk, my voice surprisingly steady despite my racing heart. I received a call that he was brought here after an accident. She typed something into her computer. Yes, Mr. Mitchell is in the emergency department. Are you family? I'm his wife. She directed me to the emergency waiting area, where a nurse escorted me to a small consultation room. Minutes later, a doctor entered, Dr. Taylor according to his badge, a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a serious expression. Mrs. Mitchell? I'm Dr. Taylor. I've been treating your husband since he was brought in this morning. This morning? But I just got called now. Panic edged my voice. I apologize for the delay. Your husband was unconscious when paramedics brought him in around 9:30. He had no identification initially, just his phone which was damaged in the accident. It took some time to determine his identity and contact information. Is he okay? I barely managed to ask. He sustained a concussion, several broken ribs, and a broken wrist when his car collided with a guardrail. He's stable, but he's been unconscious for most of the day. He's just starting to come around now, which is why we called you. Relief flooded through me, quickly followed by confusion. But if he's been here since this morning, how could his family think he was at work? Dr. Taylor looked puzzled. I don't know about that, but I can tell you he's been here since approximately 9:30 a.m. The police report indicates he likely fell asleep at the wheel. His blood work showed no alcohol or substances, just signs of exhaustion. Can I see him? Of course. He's still groggy from the medication and the concussion, so try to keep things calm and quiet. I followed Dr. Taylor through the emergency department to a curtained area where Jason lay, looking smaller and more vulnerable than I'd ever seen him. His right arm was in a cast, butterfly bandages closed a cut on his forehead, and various monitors beeped steadily beside him. His eyes were closed, but they fluttered open as I approached. Steph? His voice was hoarse, confused. I'm here. I took his uninjured hand in mine. You were in an accident. Accident? He tried to sit up, wincing in pain. What time is it? What happened? It's almost 5. You've been unconscious most of the day. The doctor says you fell asleep driving. He closed his eyes briefly, seeming to process this information. I was so tired, hadn't slept in days. Jason, I squeezed his hand, needing answers. Did you tell Amber to pack up my things? Did you agree to let your parents move into our house? His eyes flew open, confusion and alarm clear in his expression. What? No. Why would you ask that? Relief and vindication washed over me, followed immediately by renewed anger at his family. Because that's what I found when I came home early today. Amber and her friends packing my belongings, claiming you'd authorized it because your parents are moving in and I'm moving out. That's insane, he whispered, wincing as he tried again to sit up. I would never. Your mother came over too. They both insisted this was all discussed and decided. They said you were supposed to tell me last night. Jason's face paled further, realization dawning. Last night. Mom called, said she needed to talk to me about their financial situation. Asked me to meet her for coffee this morning before work. I was on my way there when. I don't remember anything after that. A nurse entered, checking Jason's vitals and giving him more pain medication. While she worked, I noticed his phone on the bedside table among his personal effects. It was cracked but appeared functional. I picked it up, relieved when it turned on. Password? I asked Jason. 7246, he mumbled, the pain medication already making him drowsy. I opened his messages, finding no conversation with Amber about packing my things or his parents moving in. The most recent text to her was from 3 days ago about returning a borrowed book. I scrolled through his recent calls, several from his mother yesterday and early this morning, but nothing that would explain what was happening at our house. After the nurse left, I gently pressed for more information. Jason, your mom mentioned financial problems. What's going on with your parents? He sighed, fighting to stay alert through the medication. Dad made some bad investments, lost a lot of their retirement savings. Mom's been panicking, calling me constantly. That's what she wanted to discuss this morning, their options. But I never, ever suggested they move into our home, and I certainly never agreed to you moving out. That's crazy, Steph. You're my wife. The simple statement brought tears to my eyes. Whatever was happening, Jason wasn't part of it. A different nurse entered, her badge read Heather, carrying more medication. She smiled sympathetically. How's our patient doing? Still confused, I replied. He was unconscious for quite a while. Yes, that's common with concussions. The doctor explained the situation. When I nodded, she continued, your husband's condition has improved significantly since this morning. It was concerning when his family visited and he didn't respond to them at all. I froze. His family was here? When? Around noon, I believe. His mother and sister? They tried to authorize medical decisions since he was unconscious, but of course, we needed his legal next of kin, you. What kind of decisions? I asked, alarm growing. Nothing major. Just whether to transfer him to a different hospital. They were quite insistent, actually. Security had to ask them to leave when they became disruptive. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. They'd known Jason was in the hospital all along. They'd tried to take control of his medical care and transfer him somewhere else, perhaps to delay me finding out what had happened. And then they'd return to our house to continue their plan, lying about Jason being in meetings all day. Is there an incident report about what happened with them? I asked. Yes, security filed one. Hospital policy for any disturbance. I'd like a copy, please. And I'd like to be noted in my husband's file as his only authorized visitor and decision-maker for now. Heather looked surprised but nodded. I'll take care of that right away. As she left, Jason stirred again. Steph? What's happening? Your mother and sister knew you were here, I explained gently. They visited around noon, tried to make medical decisions for you, then went to our house and told me you were at work and had authorized them to pack up my things. Even through the haze of medication, Jason's expression darkened with anger and disbelief. They what? Why would they? I think they're taking advantage of your parents' financial situation to try to get rid of me. Your mother said something about blood being thicker than water and that marriage isn't always forever. That's not happening, he mumbled, fighting to stay awake. You're my family. First and always. As he drifted off to sleep, I sat beside him, holding his hand and trying to process everything. The doctor had confirmed Jason had been unconscious since early morning, long before Amber started packing my belongings. The hospital security report would prove his family knew exactly where he was while telling me he was unavailable at work. They had lied, systematically and thoroughly, attempting to use a family crisis and Jason's accident as an opportunity to force me out of my marriage and home. The question was, what was I going to do about it? After ensuring Jason was stable and would be kept overnight for observation, I left the hospital with renewed determination. Armed with copies of the hospital security report and Jason's admission records, proving he'd been there since early morning, I called Ryan, Jason's best friend since college, and explained the situation. That's the most messed up thing I've ever heard, he said, outrage clear in his voice. I'll meet you at your house in 15. Those people aren't getting away with this. I drove home, rehearsing what I would say, how I would confront Diane and Amber with their lies. But when I pulled into my driveway, I was met with a new shock. My key no longer worked in the front door. In the few hours I'd been at the hospital, they had changed the locks on my own home. I knocked, then pounded when there was no answer. Finally, Amber opened the door, chain still in place. Oh, it's you, she said with fake surprise. We assumed you wouldn't be coming back tonight. Let me in, Amber. Now. I don't think that's a good idea. Mom and I have been talking, and we think it's best if you give Jason some space to figure things out. You can call him tomorrow. Jason is in the hospital, I said flatly. He's been there since 9:30 this morning after a car accident. You and your mother visited him at noon, then came here and lied to me about where he was. Her expression faltered momentarily before she recovered. I don't know what you're talking about. Jason's not in any hospital. Stop lying. I've been with him for the past 2 hours. He has a concussion, broken ribs, and a broken wrist. And he made it very clear that he never agreed to let you pack my things or have his parents move in. He's confused, she countered. The stress of everything with our parents, he's not thinking clearly. Ryan's car pulled up behind mine, and he approached, standing supportively at my side. Everything okay, Steph? No, I replied loudly enough for the neighbors to hear. My in-laws have changed the locks on my house and are refusing to let me in. You changed the locks? Ryan looked incredulous. That's illegal. Mind your own business, Ryan, Amber snapped. This is a family matter. Stephanie is family, he shot back. And Jason would never approve of what you're doing. You don't know what Jason wants, she insisted. Actually, I just got off the phone with him, Ryan lied smoothly. He's pretty upset about what you and your mom are trying to pull. Uncertainty flickered across Amber's face. Before she could respond, I pulled out my phone. I'm calling the police. You've illegally changed the locks on my home and are refusing entry to a legal owner. You wouldn't dare, she hissed. Watch me. I dialed 911, maintaining eye contact with her as I reported the situation. 20 minutes later, Officer Wilson arrived, a middle-aged policeman with a no-nonsense demeanor. I explained the situation, showing him my identification with our address and the hospital documentation proving Jason's whereabouts all day. Ma'am, I need you to remove the chain and open this door, he instructed Amber. This appears to be a civil matter, but refusing the homeowner entry could constitute illegal lockout. Diane appeared behind Amber. Officer, there's been a misunderstanding. My son Jason authorized us to be here. He and Stephanie are separating. Do you have documentation of that? Officer Wilson asked. Well, no, but I have documentation proving otherwise, I interrupted, handing him the hospital reports and our property deed showing joint ownership. My husband has been unconscious in the hospital most of today. He never authorized them to change locks or remove my belongings. The officer reviewed the documents. Ma'am, he addressed Diane, I need to see some proof of your authority to be in this home and change locks without the owner's consent. My son gave verbal permission, she insisted. Which he denies, I countered. And even if he had, this is my house too. Both our names are on the deed. He can't kick me out without legal proceedings. Officer Wilson nodded. She's correct about that. In cases of joint ownership, one party cannot exclude the other without court orders. I'm going to have to ask you to remove the chain and allow Mrs. Mitchell entry to her home. Reluctantly, Amber unlatched the chain. As I stepped inside, I was horrified to see the progress they'd made in my absence. Boxes filled the living room, many labeled donation or storage. Family photos had been removed from walls, replaced with Diane's tacky decorative plates. It looked like they'd been working systematically to erase any trace of my existence. What have you done? I whispered, taking in the transformation. Improvements, Diane replied coolly. This place needed a woman's touch. I am a woman, and this is my house. I snapped, my patience finally breaking. You lied about Jason's whereabouts, took advantage of his accident to try to steal our home, and nearly erased me from my own life in a matter of hours. What kind of people are you? People who take care of family, Diane shot back. Which you've never been, not really. Jason married beneath him, and we've tolerated it for years. But when real crisis hits, blood is what matters. So that's what this is about? You've never thought I was good enough for your precious son? You were a phase, dear. A rebellion. Jason was meant for someone from our circle, someone who understands family obligations. The naked prejudice in her voice stunned me. After 8 years of marriage, countless family dinners, holidays, and celebrations, this was what she really thought of me. That I was temporary, inadequate, an obstacle to whatever dynasty she imagined for her son. Ryan, who had followed me inside, looked disgusted. You're unbelievable, Diane. Jason loves Stephanie. He always has. Love changes, she dismissed. Priorities shift. Not Jason's, I stated firmly. I've spoken with him. He never agreed to any of this, and he's furious about what you're trying to do. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Diane's face. He's confused from the accident. Once he understands the financial situation. The financial situation? I interrupted. You mean the fact that Harold gambled away your retirement savings on risky investments? Her face paled. How did you? Jason told me. He also told me he never, ever agreed to let you move in here, much less force me out. He was on his way to meet you this morning to discuss options for helping you financially when he crashed from exhaustion. Exhaustion caused by your constant panicked calls and manipulation. Amber stepped forward, her expression suddenly uncertain. Mom? Is that true? Did Dad really gamble everything away? The tableau shifted as Diane's carefully constructed narrative began crumbling. Harold, who had been quietly arranging his belongings in the corner, looked up with guilty embarrassment. It wasn't gambling, he said quietly. It was investments. Risky ones, yes, but I was trying to increase our retirement fund. Without telling me the full extent, Diane added bitterly. I only learned last month how bad it really was. A knock at the door interrupted the tense moment. Officer Wilson answered it, admitting Ashley and a man I recognized as Tyler, Jason's brother. What the hell is going on? Tyler demanded, looking around at the boxes and changed decor. Ashley called me, said Mom and Amber were trying to kick Stephanie out. You weren't supposed to be involved in this, Tyler, Diane said dismissively. Involved in what? Stealing Jason and Stephanie's house? He looked incredulous. Have you all lost your minds? Your brother is in the hospital, I told him. He was in an accident this morning. Your mother and sister visited him at noon, then came here pretending they didn't know where he was, claiming he'd authorized them to pack my things and move me out so they could move in. Tyler's expression shifted from confusion to horror to anger. Is this true, Mom? Diane's composure finally cracked. We had no choice. We're about to lose everything. The house, the cars. Your father's investments were a scam. We have nowhere to go. So you thought the solution was to lie and manipulate and try to break up Jason's marriage? Tyler shook his head in disgust. There are other options. You could have asked for help honestly. We tried. Jason keeps saying he needs to discuss it with Stephanie. We knew she'd never agree to help us. You never gave me the chance, I pointed out. You assumed I'd say no, so you concocted this elaborate scheme to get rid of me. Did you really think Jason would just go along with it once he realized what you'd done? The room fell silent as the full insanity of their plan became apparent. They had gambled everything on the assumption that Jason would choose his birth family over his wife once presented with a fait accompli. They had underestimated both his love for me and his integrity. Amber's friends Caitlin and Brenda, who had been quietly packing in the bedroom, emerged with their purses. We're leaving, Caitlin announced uncomfortably. Amber, we had no idea what was really going on here. You told us Jason and Stephanie were separating and he needed help packing her things. Yeah, Brenda added. This is messed up. I'm sorry, Stephanie. We wouldn't have helped if we'd known the truth. As they left, Officer Wilson stepped forward. Ladies and gentlemen, I recommend resolving this peacefully. Mrs. Mitchell has legal right to her home. Anyone who doesn't live here needs to leave. I'm not going anywhere, Diane declared. Not until Jason tells me himself that he wants me gone. I pulled out my phone, putting it on speaker as I dialed the hospital. After explaining the situation to the nurse, Jason's voice came through, groggy but determined. Mom? What the hell are you doing? Get out of our house. Now. Diane's face crumpled. Jason, sweetie, you don't understand. We have nowhere to go. That doesn't give you the right to try to steal my home and get rid of my wife. I can't believe you would do this. We could have figured something out together if you'd been honest, but this? This is unforgivable. Jason. No, Mom. No more manipulation. Leave my house and give my wife back her keys. We'll discuss your financial situation once I'm out of the hospital, but for now, just go. The finality in his voice left no room for argument. Harold stood, placing a gentle hand on his wife's shoulder. Diane, enough. We've gone too far. Let's go. Deflated and defeated, Diane handed over the new house keys. This isn't over, she murmured to me as she gathered her purse. He'll realize eventually where his true loyalties should lie. His loyalties are exactly where they should be, I replied steadily. With the family he chose. With me. As Officer Wilson escorted them out, I surveyed the damage they'd done to our home in just one day. The physical changes could be reversed, boxes unpacked, decorations removed, furniture restored to its proper place. The emotional damage would take longer to heal, but with Jason by my side, I knew we would recover. The family I'd married into had shown their true colors today, revealing a capacity for deception and cruelty I'd never fully recognized despite years of subtle warning signs. But in doing so, they had also solidified something important: the strength of my marriage and Jason's commitment to the family we had built together. The next few days passed in a blur of hospital visits and home restoration. Jason was released after 2 days of observation, his physical injuries healing well, though the emotional wounds inflicted by his family's betrayal ran much deeper. With Ashley and Ryan's help, I had managed to unpack most of my belongings and return our home to some semblance of normalcy before bringing Jason home. "I still can't believe they did this," Jason said as I helped him settle on our couch, his ribs and wrist still causing significant pain. 8 years of marriage, and they tried to erase you from my life in a single day. "They underestimated both of us," I replied, arranging pillows to support his injured side. "And they completely miscalculated how much we love each other." He took my hand, his expression serious. "I'm so sorry, Steph. I should have seen the warning signs. All those calls from my mother, the financial discussions they wanted to keep private. I never imagined they'd go this far. It's not your fault. They took advantage of your accident, something no loving family would ever do." The doorbell rang, and I answered it to find a courier with papers requiring signature. Legal documents, a temporary restraining order against Amber, preventing her from entering our property or contacting either of us. Jason's lawyer had moved quickly after learning what had happened. "Is this really necessary?" Jason asked as I showed him the documents. "Your sister changed the locks on our house and tried to throw me out while you were unconscious in the hospital," I reminded him gently. "Yes, it's necessary, at least until we figure out long-term boundaries." He nodded, the reality of the situation still sinking in. "What about my parents? Their financial situation is real, even if their solution was insane." "We'll help them find options that don't involve stealing our house," I assured him. "But that discussion can wait until you're recovered." Over the following weeks, Jason's physical healing progressed steadily. The cast on his wrist was cumbersome but manageable, and his ribs slowly mended, allowing him to move with less pain. The emotional healing proved more challenging. He alternated between anger at his family's betrayal and guilt over cutting them off, even temporarily. On the recommendation of his doctor, we began seeing Dr. Matthews, a couples therapist who specialized in family estrangement issues. During our 3rd session, Jason finally articulated what had been haunting him. "I feel like I failed everyone," he admitted. "I failed my parents by not solving their financial problems, and I failed Stephanie by not protecting her from my family's scheme." "You didn't fail anyone," Dr. Matthews replied. "Your parents created their own financial crisis and then tried to solve it by manipulating you and hurting Stephanie. Those were their choices, not yours. But they're still my parents. I can't just abandon them." "Setting boundaries isn't abandonment," I said gently. "We can help them find an apartment, maybe assist with rent for a while until they get back on their feet. But we need to establish clear lines they can't cross." With Dr. Matthews' guidance, we crafted a plan for moving forward, one that included financial assistance for Jason's parents but with strict conditions regarding respect for our marriage and home. When we finally met with Diane and Harold at a neutral location, Jason was firm despite his mother's tears and attempts at emotional manipulation. "We'll help you find an affordable apartment and contribute to rent for 6 months, he told them. "After that, you need to have a sustainable plan. Dad needs to find work, even part-time, and Mom, you mentioned wanting to return to teaching. Now's the time." "And what about family dinners? Holidays? Are we just supposed to pretend nothing happened?" Diane asked bitterly. "Nothing will be the same until you acknowledge what you did and sincerely apologize to Stephanie," Jason replied. "You tried to use my accident as an opportunity to destroy my marriage. That's not something we can just sweep under the rug. Harold, who had been mostly silent, finally spoke up. He's right, Diane. What we did, what you planned, was wrong. I should have stopped it, but I was so ashamed of losing our savings that I went along with everything. He turned to me. Stephanie, I am truly sorry. There's no excuse for what happened. His sincerity surprised me, opening a small door for potential reconciliation down the road. Diane, however, remained resistant, unable to admit the magnitude of her actions or offer a genuine apology. She agreed to the financial arrangement but continued to frame the incident as a misunderstanding rather than the calculated scheme it had been. Amber was another story entirely. Despite multiple opportunities, she refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing, insisting she had only been helping family and that I was overreacting. The restraining order remained in place, and Jason made the painful decision to maintain distance until she showed real change. Tyler, on the other hand, became an unexpected ally. Horrified by what his mother and sister had done, he stepped up to help his parents find an apartment and sort through their financial mess. He discovered the extent of Harold's investment losses and created a realistic budget they could follow moving forward. I had no idea how bad things were, he confessed during a coffee meeting with Jason and me. Dad lost almost everything on cryptocurrency and some tech startup investments. They're essentially starting over at 65. That's terrible, I acknowledged. But it still doesn't justify what they tried to do. I know. I'm not defending them. I don't want this to destroy our entire family forever. Jason squeezed his brother's shoulder. It won't. We'll find a new normal eventually. It just won't look like it did before. As the weeks turned into months, we gradually established that new normal. Harold found part-time work as a consultant, while Diane reluctantly accepted a teaching position at a private school, less prestigious than her previous role but steady income they desperately needed. They settled into a modest two-bedroom apartment with Tyler's help, learning to live within more limited means. Our home, once invaded and nearly stolen, became a sanctuary again. We changed all the locks, installed a security system, and gradually replaced items that had been damaged during Amber's packing frenzy. More importantly, we reinforced our partnership, communicating more openly about family issues and establishing joint protocols for handling crises. Do you think we'll ever fully trust them again? I asked Jason one evening as we sat on our patio, watching the sunset 6 months after the incident. Trust is earned, he replied thoughtfully. Dad's making an effort. Mom, she's trying in her own way, I think. Amber might never get there. And how do you feel about that possibility? He considered the question carefully. Sad, but at peace. My priority is our family, you and me, and maybe kids someday if we decide that's what we want. I won't let toxic relationships threaten what matters most, even if those relationships are with people who raised me. I leaned against his shoulder, now fully healed from the accident. That can't have been an easy conclusion to reach. It wasn't, he admitted. But watching you stand your ground that day, fighting for our home and our marriage even when everyone was against you, it showed me what real family loyalty looks like. It's not about blood, it's about choice, commitment, and respect. As darkness fell around us, I reflected on the painful journey we'd traveled and the strength we'd found along the way. Sometimes it takes a crisis to reveal the truth about relationships, which ones will weather the storm and which will crumble under pressure. Our marriage had not only survived but emerged stronger, forged in the fire of betrayal and recovery. The family we had chosen, each other, had proven more resilient than the family we were born into. And in that knowledge, there was both comfort and power. 1 year after what we now simply call the incident, Jason and I stood in our backyard surrounded by friends, renewing our vows in a small, intimate ceremony. It wasn't something we had planned in advance, but as the anniversary approached, we both felt drawn to the idea of reaffirming our commitment after everything we had weathered together. Ashley served as my maid of honor, while Ryan stood beside Jason as best man. Our neighbors Carol and Dave, who had witnessed the chaotic confrontation a year earlier, sat in the front row, beaming with approval. Tyler was there too, representing the complex family connections that remained despite everything that had happened. Harold attended with our blessing, sitting quietly at the back, his expression a mixture of regret and gratitude for the invitation. Diane had been invited as well, a decision we had debated extensively. But she had declined, still unable to fully acknowledge her role in what had happened or offer the sincere apology that might have begun genuine healing. Amber, still subject to the restraining order after several hostile encounters, had not been invited at all. When Jason and I first married 8 years ago, I said during our exchange of vows, I thought I understood what "for better or worse" meant. This past year showed me the true depth of that promise. We've seen the worst and found our way back to better, stronger than before. Jason squeezed my hands, his eyes reflecting both past pain and present joy. Stephanie, you fought for us when I couldn't. You defended our home and our marriage with a strength I didn't know was possible. I vow to be that same strength for you, to protect what we've built together, and to choose you, actively and intentionally, every single day for the rest of our lives. The simplicity of the ceremony reflected our new approach to life. Focusing on what truly mattered and eliminating the unnecessary complications that had once cluttered our relationship. We had learned to communicate more directly, to question assumptions, and to create explicit agreements rather than relying on implied understanding. Those lessons extended to practical matters as well. After the incident, we had met with a lawyer to create ironclad legal protections for our assets and healthcare decisions. We established a clear will, advanced directives, and power of attorney documents ensuring that only we could make decisions for each other in times of crisis. The experience had taught us that hoping for the best was not enough, we needed to actively prepare for worst-case scenarios. Our relationship with Jason's family had evolved into something new and carefully structured. Harold continued his efforts at redemption, accepting responsibility for his financial mistakes and respecting the boundaries we had established. He visited occasionally for coffee or dinner, always calling ahead and never overstaying his welcome. There was a humility to him now that had been absent before, a recognition of the damage his passivity had allowed. Diane remained more distant, maintaining contact primarily through brief phone calls with Jason. She had never fully accepted her role in the scheme, continuing to minimize her actions as just trying to help family during a crisis. Her inability to offer a genuine apology created a barrier that even Jason's natural inclination toward forgiveness couldn't overcome. We maintained civil contact for his sake, but the warm relationship I had once hoped for with my mother-in-law was unlikely to ever materialize. Tyler had perhaps grown the most through the experience, finding his voice and standing up to his mother's manipulations for the first time in his life. He and his girlfriend Grace had recently become engaged, and they often sought our advice about establishing healthy boundaries with family early in their marriage. How did you know when to cut ties versus when to try reconciliation? Grace asked one evening during dinner at our home. It came down to accountability, I explained. Harold acknowledged what he did wrong and made genuine efforts to change. Diane acknowledged facts but not responsibility. Amber denied everything and blamed me for overreacting. The path forward was different with each of them based on their response to being confronted with the truth. It's not about punishing people for mistakes, Jason added. It's about protecting yourself from those who refuse to acknowledge the harm they've caused. You can forgive someone but still need distance if they haven't truly changed. Our professional lives had transformed as well. Jason had left his architecture firm to start his own practice, focusing on residential projects that allowed him more control over his schedule and client relationships. I had received a promotion at my marketing firm, the crisis having revealed leadership skills I hadn't fully recognized in myself before. We had also become more involved in our community, hosting neighborhood gatherings and building stronger connections with those around us. The support we had received during the crisis, from Ashley and Ryan rushing to our defense, to our neighbors witnessing the confrontation, to Jason's colleagues covering his work during his recovery, had demonstrated the value of the chosen family we had built over the years. As our vow renewal celebration continued into the evening, I found a quiet moment to speak with Harold, who had remained somewhat on the periphery of the gathering. Thank you for coming today, I said, sitting beside him. It means a lot to Jason. Thank you for inviting me, he replied, his voice thick with emotion. I know I don't deserve it after what happened. You've worked hard to make amends. That counts for something. He nodded, looking out at the yard where Jason laughed with friends. I failed him as a father. I failed to stand up to Diane when I should have, for years. It took nearly losing him completely to realize what I had done. It's never too late to become the father he needs, I said gently. Not the one who tries to control his life or make decisions for him, but the one who respects his choices and supports his happiness. I'm trying, he assured me. Every day. Later that night, after our guests had departed and we were alone again, Jason and I sat on our patio swing, reflecting on the day and the year that had preceded it. Do you ever regret standing your ground so firmly? He asked. With my family, I mean. We could have found a middle path, maybe. I considered the question carefully. No. Some situations don't have a middle path. They were trying to erase me from our life, Jason. If I hadn't fought back exactly as I did, with every resource available, I might have lost you and our home in one day. He nodded slowly. You're right. I just wish things could have turned out differently with my mother and sister. That was their choice, not yours, I reminded him. You offered reconciliation with reasonable boundaries. They chose pride over relationship. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars emerge in the night sky. So much had changed in a year, yet the fundamental truth of our partnership remained constant. We had chosen each other, and we would continue making that choice every day, through whatever challenges life presented. What do you think the next year will bring? Jason asked, his arm around my shoulders. I don't know, I admitted. But I know we'll face it together. As we prepare to celebrate another year of marriage, I want to thank you all for following our journey through this difficult chapter. Life doesn't always unfold as we expect, and sometimes the people we trust the most can disappoint us profoundly. But those moments of crisis can also reveal surprising strength within ourselves and unshakable bonds with those who truly love us. What boundaries have you established in your own relationships that proved necessary for your well-being? Have you ever had to stand your ground against family pressure? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if our journey resonated with you, subscribe for more real-life stories of resilience, and share with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to protect what matters most, even when that means standing up to family. Thank you for being part of our healing process, and I wish you strength and clarity in your own relationships.